Quando Rondo believed he had escaped the worst of his troubles, but that sense of relief quickly faded when danger followed him behind bars. Now, even in prison, he's not out of harm's way. But in reality, this turn of events shouldn't be shocking. For years, he has been a walking target. From feuds with fellow rappers, which played out in his music videos, to violent confrontations that spilled into the real world, his fate seemed almost inevitable. The streets have always been hot on his trail, and now it appears they're still, after him, even in the confines of a prison cell. Someone's clearly intent on finishing what they started. Let's dive deeper into the attempted hit on Quando Rondo. If you follow hip-hop closely, you're probably familiar with his name, Takian Terrell Bowman, aka Quando Rondo. His recent prison sentence isn't the first time he's found himself in hot water, and it certainly won't be the last if his history is any indication. To understand why he's still in danger, we have to rewind and take a closer look at the path he's taken, the enemies he's made, and the troubled past that's now catching up with him. Quando Rondo began serving a 33-month federal sentence on January 10, 2025, at FCI Elkton in Lisbon, Ohio. But even behind bars, his past continues to haunt him. Quando Rondo's time behind bars traces back to his guilty plea on a federal drug conspiracy charge centered around the distribution of marijuana. This legal battle began with an indictment in December 2023, and after months of proceedings, he pleaded guilty in August 2024. The final blow came in December 2024, when he was sentenced. But this legal chapter is merely a starting point in a much more complex and troubling tale. Quando Rondo's incarceration stems from a guilty plea to a federal drug conspiracy charge related to marijuana distribution. This followed an indictment in December 2023, with Quando pleading guilty in August 2024 and being sentenced in December 2024. But this is just the start of a much darker story. His situation involves murder plots, gang affiliations, and one of the most notorious beefs in hip-hop. The real danger for Quando Rondo didn't start with his arrest, but much earlier with a deadly incident. On August 19, 2022, a routine stop at a Beverly Grove gas station in Los Angeles turned deadly. Quando Rondo and his cousin, Savia Robinson, known as Lou Pab, were targeted in a shooting that claimed Lou Pab's life. Quando, a passenger in the car, was frantic at the scene. This wasn't random. It was reportedly part of a carefully planned murder-for-hire plot. The person allegedly behind it was none other than Grammy-winning rapper Lil Durk. Federal authorities claim the attack was carefully orchestrated. On August 18, 2022, conspirators learned that Quando Rondo was in Los Angeles and immediately moved to track him down. The level of planning was chilling. Kevin London Grant, one of the alleged attackers, arrived by private jet, bought 4 ski masks, and provided firearms, including automatic weapons. The group also rented 2 cars, a white BMW and a white Infiniti with fake license plates to avoid detection. The planning didn't stop there. They tracked Quando Rondo's black Cadillac Escalade throughout the day, following him to various places like a marijuana dispensary and a clothing store on Melrose Avenue. When they finally struck at the gas station around 5:30 p.m., chaos unfolded. After the shooting, the attackers escaped through an alley, regrouped at a hamburger restaurant, and returned to Chicago using a fake credit card. The most shocking revelation came in October 2024, when Lil Durk was arrested in South Florida on charges of conspiracy to commit murder for hire linked to this incident. At the time of his arrest, he was allegedly planning to flee the country, with reports stating he had booked 3 international flights, including one to Italy. He is currently being held without bail in Broward County Jail, awaiting transfer to U.S. Marshals for arraignment in Los Angeles. The motive behind the murder plot: revenge. Federal authorities believe the attack was retaliation for the 2020 killing of King Von, a close associate of Lil Durk, who was fatally shot outside an Atlanta lounge on November 6, 2020. The shooting involved Timothy Leaks, known as Lil Tim, an associate of Quando Rondo. To understand this connection, we need to look at what happened that night in Atlanta. In an interview, Lil Tim claimed he was protecting Quando Rondo during an altercation with King Von. He described the incident, saying, "Will you pull out and you shoot 4 times? Yeah, the gun jammed. Oh, the gun jammed. Yeah, after the..." Fourth shot, probably like the third shot. Lil Tim went on to explain how the chaos unfolded, with off-duty police officers in the area firing as well. When asked about his own injuries, he said, "I get shot in my right hip bone, and I get shot. On my ass." The shootout led to multiple casualties and injuries. King Von's associate, Dot, was killed by police, while Von's manager, 100K Track, was shot in the leg, and another associate, Oblak Louis, was shot in the head. Interestingly, Lil Tim claims he didn't even realize he had shot King Von. He said, "I didn't know neither one if he was gone or still alive. Like I say, I didn't even know it was him. So, I didn't even know if he was dead or alive." This incident sparked a deep rivalry between Lil Durk's OTF collective and Quando Rondo's camp. The feud would linger for years, with tensions occasionally spilling over in songs and social media posts. Federal investigators believe the 2022 gas station shooting was the final act of this revenge plot. The legal consequences have been harsh. 5 individuals connected to Kevin London Grant, DeAndre Dantrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, and Asa Houston were arrested on October 24, 2022. They face charges including conspiracy to commit murder for hire resulting in death, and using a machine gun in a violent crime that led to death. These charges carry some of the harshest penalties in the U.S. legal system, including the possibility of the death penalty if convicted. As for Lil Durk, he pleaded not guilty to federal charges in November 2024, which include additional counts of using interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death and possession of firearms in furtherance of a crime of violence. Federal prosecutors allege that Lil Durk taunted Quando Rondo in his music, rapping about the murder for hire plot. The indictment also reveals financial motivations behind the scheme. DeAndre Dantrell Wilson allegedly paid Keith Jones and David Brian Lindsay on behalf of an unnamed co-conspirator who had promised money and lucrative music opportunities in exchange for targeting Quando Rondo. Revenge in this case had financial backing. What's particularly significant is that the original target was Quando Rondo himself, not his cousin, who tragically lost his life. This detail is crucial in understanding the ongoing threat that followed Rondo into prison. With such dangerous enemies allegedly willing to plan complex murder plots, the risk didn't fade once he was behind bars after Lil Durk's arrest in October 2024. Quando Rondo made a statement expressing his desire to move beyond the conflict. He said, "We've already lost so much, and it's heavy on my heart to forgive anyone I had issues with in the past. It's all love from me, praying for everyone." However, as we'll see, these words may have come too late, as the forces of vengeance had already begun to move forward. This intricate web of violence, revenge, and legal battles helps explain why Quando Rondo remains a target even behind bars. The failed murder plot in 2022 showed just how far his enemies were willing to go to harm him, coordinating across state lines, investing considerable resources, and facing severe legal risks in chase. The process. For someone with such relentless enemies, prison walls may provide little protection. The road that led Quando Rondo to federal prison is a complicated one, shaped by numerous legal troubles that eventually culminated in his current predicament. While his ongoing feud with Lil Durk's camp may have made him a prime target, it was a completely different set of charges that ultimately landed him behind bars. As mentioned earlier, Quando Rondo started serving his 33-month federal sentence on January 10, 2025. If he behaves well, he could be released by the summer of 2027. He seems to be adjusting to prison life, recently sharing a photo of himself behind bars. But the road to this sentence was far from straightforward. Quando Rondo's legal troubles escalated in December 2023 when he was indicted on federal charges for conspiring with others to possess and distribute drugs, including methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and marijuana. It's important to highlight that the indictment didn't charge him with directly possessing or selling drugs, but instead accused him of conspiracy, suggesting he played a role in facilitating the drug distribution. The federal charges alone carried a potential sentence of up to 20 years in prison. At the same time, Quando Rondo faced serious state charges in Chatham County, Georgia. In June 2023, he was indicted on charges related to drug sales and gang activity, with prosecutors making the explosive claim that he held a leadership role in the Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips gang. The state charges were extensive. They included 2 counts of conspiracy to violate Georgia's Controlled Substances Act, 1 count of participating in criminal street gang activity, and the use of a communication facility in the commission of a felony involving controlled substances. The mix of federal and state charges created a formidable legal challenge for Quando Rondo. If convicted on all counts, Quando Rondo could have faced decades behind bars. However, in a key turn of events, he struck a plea deal with federal prosecutors in June 2024. As part of this agreement, he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and distribute controlled substances, specifically marijuana. This legal move significantly reduced his potential sentence, resulting in the 33-month term he's currently serving. What's particularly notable is how the charges evolved. Initially, he faced accusations related to several serious drugs, including methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine, but the plea deal focused solely on marijuana. This distinction is important, because charges involving harder drugs typically carry much harsher penalties in the federal system. However, Quando Rondo's legal troubles didn't end with his federal case, they just kept spiraling. In February 2024, while already facing serious federal charges, he was hit with even more trouble: a DUI and reckless driving arrest. This stemmed from a wild car crash in July 2023, with reports suggesting he may have overdosed while driving. While this incident didn't directly lead to his federal prison time, it highlighted one thing clearly: Quando was under pressure from every side. Legal troubles, personal struggles, and increasing enemies were all closing in on him. This wasn't Quando Rondo's first encounter with legal issues unrelated to drugs. In March 2019, he and fellow rapper Youngboy Never Broke Again were sued for assault, battery, and emotional distress following an alleged incident at a concert in Florence, South Carolina. The incident, which reportedly took place on December 21, 2018, involved a man claiming to be their bodyguard, tour manager, or tour DJ, who accused them of attacking him during a dispute with a fan. The lawsuit alleged that the altercation caused serious injuries, including a cracked tooth and a bloody face. This early controversy highlights a pattern of legal troubles that existed before his more recent drug charges and the King Von-related conflicts that would later shape his public image. Quando Rondo's ongoing legal battle also ties into the fallout from the King Von situation, a feud that's plagued him for years. That beef didn't fade with time. It followed him right into prison. Inside those walls, old street tensions don't fade, they intensify. For someone like Quando, who's already been the target of an alleged murder-for-hire plot, prison isn't just about doing time, it's about survival. He's currently serving his sentence at FCI Elkton, a low-security federal facility in Ohio. But don't let the low-security label fool you. This facility still houses inmates convicted of serious crimes: drug traffickers, violent offenders, and gang-affiliated individuals. In such an environment, your past never stays behind you. If you had enemies on the outside, chances are they or their associates are already waiting for you on the inside. And here's the part that's raising eyebrows: the timing. Quando Rondo began serving his sentence in January 2025. Just a few months earlier, in October 2024, Lil Durk was arrested in connection to that same murder-for-hire plot. Coincidence? Maybe. But in a world where loyalties run deep and grudges never fade, it's not hard to imagine that some of Durk's people, or even just his supporters, might be pulling strings behind bars. For Quando, that could mean an entirely new level of danger. The district attorney's attempt to ban him from Chatham County before his incarceration also underscores how authorities saw him as a potentially dangerous figure. This unusual legal maneuver highlights the complicated relationship between Quando Rondo, law enforcement, and how public safety is perceived. The reality is that Rondo is highly vulnerable to attacks behind bars. He's made enemies who have already proven they're willing to go to extreme lengths to harm him, even targeting those he cares about. Tragically, one of those loved ones paid the ultimate price. But this isn't a new threat tied to his jail time. It's been looming over him for years, fueled by ongoing feuds and dangerous associations that have followed him throughout his career. A history of threats hangs over him, with the most significant being the August 19, 2022 shooting in Los Angeles that took the life of his cousin, Lil Pop. This attack, now allegedly linked to Lil Durk and his associates, represented the most direct and lethal threat to Quando Rondo's life. The meticulous planning behind this murder attempt, surveillance, disguises, automatic weapons, and rental cars with fake license plates, shows the extreme lengths his enemies were prepared to go. But the dangers facing Rondo don't end with this one incident. After the November 2020 death of King Von, which involved Quando Rondo's associate, Lil Tim, the rapper became a target for King Von's supporters. In January 2021, fans of King Von even sent death threats to Rondo's baby daughter on social media, following the release of a video featuring her. This shocking escalation, targeting the innocent child of someone involved in a rap beef, illustrates how these conflicts can spiral far beyond the artists themselves, reaching their families and loved ones. While these online threats didn't result in physical harm, they reveal the intense animosity aimed at Quando Rondo and anyone associated with him. The willingness of King Von's supporters to threaten a child shows a level of hatred that goes beyond typical artistic rivalries, creating an environment where danger is ever present. What makes Quando Rondo's situation in prison particularly perilous is how these outside beefs could play out in the prison environment. Federal correctional facilities house inmates from across the country, meaning associates or supporters of rival rappers could be housed in the same facility. In the confined and restricted space of a prison, where options for avoiding threats are limited, pre-existing feuds can escalate into even more dangerous situations. That's on a whole different level of retaliation. In 2024, Von's estate, Lil Durk, and F Chords were named in a wrongful death lawsuit, accused of profiting from the violence and doing nothing to prevent it. While Quando Rondo might not have put a price on anyone's life, at least not publicly, he's no stranger to violent confrontations. He was actually right there the night King Von was killed in Atlanta in 2020. Von confronted Quando and his crew outside the Monaco hookah lounge. What started as a physical altercation quickly escalated, and shots were fired. Von didn't make it to the hospital. Quando's associate, Lil Tim, took the fall for the shooting, but the streets still haven't forgotten. Since that moment, Quando's life has been a chaotic mix of fear, threats of retaliation, and constant brushes with danger. In 2021, he survived a shooting that tragically took the life of one of his close associates. He's been maneuvering like a man always on edge, switching up his security, staying low 1 minute, then flaunting cash and weapons the next. It's a pattern eerily similar to the last months of King Von's life. Von would drop a track one day, and the next, he'd be caught up in a feud. He'd talk about evolving in interviews, only to follow up with a diss track calling out his rivals. That kind of back and forth may boost numbers, but it also speeds up the inevitable. And the chilling part? Quando seems to be feeding off that same dangerous energy. Van's public perception was always split. Fans loved his authenticity, but critics saw a man who couldn't leave the streets behind, and that's ultimately what got him killed. Even after he was signed, after the fame and after the money, he still kept one foot in A Block. He still rolled with the same crew, still jumped into fights, as if nothing had changed. Quando Rondo is walking that same tightrope. His DUI in 2024 wasn't just another legal issue, it was a glaring red flag. It's not simply about drinking and driving, it's about decision-making, it's about recklessness. It's a signal that, despite everything that's happened in his life, Quando still hasn't escaped the mentality that got him in trouble in the first place. He's living like he's untouchable, just like Von did before him, and we all saw how that played out. Now, there's something even deeper here. It's not just about the charges or the street fights, it's about the psychological pull of the lifestyle. Van was described by some as gleeful in his gang activity. It wasn't just something that happened to him, he embraced it. Some reports even suggested that he shifted into what they called killer mode after watching a close friend get shot. That moment, they say, changed him. It hardened him, took him to a place where violence became the only language he knew. Quando. Rondo has never outright said something like that, but his actions speak volumes. He's seen death up close. Van's murder happened right in front of him, and since then, he's lost more friends, been involved in shootouts, and instead of pulling away, it seems like he's doubling down. Every encounter, every altercation only seems to push him deeper into this world. The more he survives, the more it seems to validate his place in it. But that's the dangerous cycle that ultimately caught up to King Von. And now Quando Rondo may be headed down that same dark road. It's a harsh reality, but it's one that bears repeating. Whether it's the survival instinct, the trauma, or just the environment itself getting the best of him, Quando Rondo is treading a dangerous path. It's in his music, too. King Von's breakout hit, Crazy Story, was a perfect reflection of his life. Wild, unpredictable, full of pain and chaos. Quando's life, in a way, is starting to sound like a remix of that same beat. The specifics might differ, but the message remains unchanged. Pain, struggle, revenge, and an unyielding loyalty to a code that leaves little room for anything resembling a long life. The truth? Quando Rondo still has a chance to turn things around. He's behind bars, yes, but he's not 6 feet under, he's still breathing, still has time. But if he doesn't take a hard look at where he's headed, he might find himself becoming the next viral headline, another tragic story in hip-hop. That's not a dramatic prediction, that's just reality. Coming from the streets is one thing. Letting the streets write your ending? That's a whole other ballgame. King Von never got the chance to evolve beyond his past. Just as he was beginning to find his true voice, the violence he couldn't escape caught up with him. And the sad part is, when you live by the streets, there's always the risk that they'll be the last chapter of your story. As more info becomes available on Quando Rondo's situation in prison, we'll keep updating you. But for now, feel free to check out the other videos on your screen. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.